day, everybody. This is Jason Jimenez with the Bold Saviors, making the impossible possible in business. And so today I have a dear friend that I've gotten to know ever since the pandemic by the name of John Andrade. And he is a gentleman that I can tell you is just a heartfelt human being, family man, someone that is always there for someone that's of need, but ultimately someone that at the end of the day just gets it done. Whatever needs to get done, he just gets it done. And if he's not, he basically is very upfront with you with the perspective of being able to move people forward in the realm of business. And I'm really happy to have him as a guest and on the Bold Saviors because his journey is unique and his journey comes from some common ground. And when I first met him and we found out where we were both from, it was one of those things. I was like, okay, I found another brother from another mother. So with that, John, I appreciate you being here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, my Colombian roots connected with you, brother. So, it's been awesome to know you, and I know the many hands you have make light work with all the connections that you have. The spider web effect is something that I always use and something that I admire that you shared. And I always loved your cadence, the way that your cadence came out, super smooth. I was always a little bit jealous of the way that you deliver things. Compared to my loud, boisterous self, I guess, sometimes.
You're too funny. So, for the people who don't know who you are, who is John Andrade?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, right? So, I'm an only child born in Chicagoland, as you just heard, Colombian roots. So, my mother is full Colombian, passed away in 2014, but as an only child, I was her favorite son, she told me. So, hijo preferido. Which means that I'm her only son, so I better be her favorite son. But as an only child, I really developed kind of entrepreneurial spirits. I developed doing things on my own. I developed ways of kind of entertaining myself, right? I didn't have brothers or sisters or even a big family per se, but legally adopted through an Ecuadorian gentleman, but my roots are Colombian, Puerto Rican, Italian, and those types of mixtures. But really identified Colombian because of obviously growing up with my mom as a single mom for many years and going from there. So then, I got into obviously business at 12 years old because of the new book that's coming out, the 4A Formula. I share in the first chapter of how I assess things. And I remember being a little bit broke. My adoptive father was a metal worker and my mom was a clerical person. So we didn't have a ton of money. It was kind of lower middle class. Lived in a condo, 2-bedroom, and I really realized like, hey, if I don't have money to get the Jordans, that were popular in the '90s, or the cool jabots and all these types of clothing, I had to go to work. So at 12 years old, I kind of thought about getting into snow plowing and cleaning cars and all that stuff. So I guess my point to that is who I am is an only child that developed strengths and character through my upbringing, through being Hispanic, through being an only child, and through having to make do and get resourceful when I didn't have a ton of resources from my parents' side. So that's who I am.
Oh, awesome. So I have a question. So to start off with, so that it gets right into it. If you were to talk to your 20-year-old self today, what would you tell him now that you know now?
Wow. Probably take a little bit more time. I've been the type of individual throughout my whole life, 20s, 30s, and 40s, that I would run into the wall and go, okay, that hurt. And I just, started businesses that failed, started businesses that did well, got into careers that I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but then I figured it out. And that was all part of, I guess, when I started writing the book, right, the 4A Formula, that I figured out some things. But in the sense of, what I would tell my 20-year-old person is, I think, slow down just a little bit, figure out what really moves you, where your passions are, and then from the 5 F's that I know we used to talk a lot about on Clubhouse, which is your faith, your family, your finances, your fun, and then your fitness. Kind of run your life around those 5 F's, and then you'll be able to prosper better. But slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down, and really assess where you're at. This would be my opinion to my 20-year-old person.
Oh, I love that and it speaks to who you are as an individual. And for those who haven't met John, you got to be able to look him up. He's on social media. He's out there. He's active. He's being a contribution to many, and it's a testament to you and your family, right? So your family's been very important to you, and especially you have a wife and you have some beautiful daughters that you are obviously raising. And I will tell you, every time I would ever get into some form of a conversation or meeting with him, with a group of individuals, this was one of the things I loved about you. You would always preface, guys, just want to let you know, I got to go pick up my kids. I got to go take them to this. I got to go do that. Or I'm going to call you when I'm in the car. Da, 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 da. And it was always around family oriented. And then you put that as such a priority there. And it's one of the things I genuinely love about you, because you are a great example of that. And could you share with us a little bit about where did that come from? Like, granted, family is first, totally get that. But you take it into not only the words, but you put action to it. And how has that impacted in the way you've made decisions and doing business?
Yeah, so, as an only child, I always, you had FOMO, right? Fear of missing out with bigger people's families. I would date girls that had bigger families, and I would be like, wow, man, this is so cool. Like, you have a brother or sister, two brothers, two sisters. You got parents that do Sunday dinners, or maybe a weekday that they would all get together on a Wednesday, but Sunday dinners were a must. Especially with the Italian background girls that I dated, they always had that Sunday dinner as such a priority. And I think that influenced me a ton. My mom was always very good about making sure she knew the birthdays of everybody, like from all the cousins and the things that we had, as far as connections and family and friends. She had her little black book, and man, every day she knew if it was Jason Jimenez's birthday, and she'd call him up or write him a letter maybe a week before when letters were a big deal, and handwritten and all that type of stuff. So I think, we all grow up with signs of things that people give us. My mom gave me signs of caring, and now I do it in text. I take her handwritten ones. I just send random texts to people and be like, hey, you Jason, how you been? Or how's your daughter? Or whatever. Because I remember that my mom would do that just to check in. From the girls that I dated, I saw that in my current wife. When I met her, she has three sisters, and they all have, daughters and sons and stuff like that. And it was interesting. Once we started having kids, we realized, like, okay, well, there is certainly a focus that you have to have. And sometimes you lose yourself in the marriage, right? The marriage part maybe, falters a bit. But, it was always very important for me, for these girls, to be able to have the type of leadership from their dad. And believe me, I've fallen on my face many times, but it's interesting that you bring that up because, I try not to be the helicopter dad where I'm on everything and doing everything with them or doing it, because I do want to give them a little bit of freedom like I felt as an only child, so that they experience some of that. But I also felt like, it's cool to be there. So I'm one of the only dads that picks up their kids from private school. It's a great feeling. And I've done that ever since they were little. And, those are the foundational things that I think, at least them seeing me present, not for everything, but present and available has been hopefully a good thing for them.
Absolutely, because I can tell you that for those who have the privilege of being in your life, I think that those things that you have been grounded from and you have been, if you will, you emulated, you've brought in, you accept it as a way of being, your character as a human being, you've applied it and carried it into your business career, your career of entrepreneurship, your career in the way you treat people, the way you respond to people. And I think that there's a lot to be said with that. I think sometimes we have to give honor to where we came from, and that's the reason where these questions come from, right? My goal today is to be able to kind of talk about the journey. Where did John come from, and why is he who he is today, and the impact he is with so many people, right? So talk to me a little bit about when you jumped into true entrepreneurship, where did you start? How did that? Because you're doing finances. You've been in finance for several years now. You help companies not only fund them properly, but position them properly giving them options to exit. Right? These are strategic conversations you're having with them, but you weren't always doing that. Where did it start?
No, no, yeah. Well, I've been in three specific industries. The first one was telecommunications. Once I decided not to go back to college, I had a chance to go to D1 soccer and had a little bit of an accident happen. Came back, I was in love, did the in love thing and living with the girl. So I kind of lost focus on the school. I never was a big school guy, even though I graduated high school early with enough credits through AP courses and stuff like that. But I wasn't really a school guy. I was more of an entrepreneur guy. I was always thinking of ideas and stuff. And at 12 years old, as I shared, I started making money on my own, shoveling snow and the car cleaning and all that stuff. And then I faked my birth certificate at 15 to go work at Wendy's because again I wanted to make money. So I kind of did a little splice thing on my birth certificate and a copy, and I got hired. So that, long story short, at 19, when I came back from that experience in the D1 soccer, I saw a flyer that said Cool Bear Enterprises, and this guy's still a friend of mine to this day, and we talked about like what we wanted to do and all these types of things, and he was hiring for telecommunications. So really calling people, selling them local and long distance services, which are not even a thing anymore, long distance on your telephone for your work commercial. That's how I got started. From that came an opportunity about 2 years into it, about 21 years old, where I could become an owner of the opportunity. So he and I talked about becoming partners, where he had always run the business on his own. And then we started a new company, a new division, and it was interesting because we got into more of like Nextel phones back in the day, the walkie-talkie phones. We had retail stores, but I had a learning lesson to have because I didn't know anything about taxes, about employee taxes, about all these things financially. So funny enough, I'm in finances now. Back in my 20s, I learned a rude lesson that you needed to pay your taxes to employee taxes quarterly. And I didn't know that. And my partner, apparently, which I'm still friends with him, didn't do it. And we got ourselves in a little bit of trouble with the IRS back in those days. But it worked through, and that gave me the learning lesson and the stumbling blocks that helped me to build up to the next industry, which was the auto industry. That one I had some success with the AutoGenie.com. We were basically like a Carvana nowadays that you may know of. Back in those days, 2004 to 2009. I sold that in 2009. And then I got into financial industries from the personal side to the business side. And I'm super excited. In my late 40s here, I feel like I finally am where I need to be. But I'm also entrepreneurial, right? Writing the book, The 4A Formula. I have the podcast like yourself. I've got some other things, consulting. But those are the three industries: telecommunications, automotive, and finance.
So I asked the question because your journey, I'm a firm believer that our past is what generally creates us where we're presently at. And we learn these trials and tribulations and these experiences that we either choose, I will never do that again, or I need more of this, right? Because it serves us well based on the things that we're committed to. And so with that, you mentioned that you have a podcast. Talk to us about Go for CFO. Where's it at? What are you doing with that? Where's it going? What's going on with that?
Yeah. So, look, I mean, we met on Clubhouse, right? A social media audio app back in 2020, late 2020, when the pandemic was going strong. And, I was inspired at that point to, it was something that God laid on my heart. It said Go for CEO. So GO, the number 4, CEO. Now, I didn't know what the number 4 was. Why didn't I just go GOFOR CEO or something like that? But the 4 had significance, and I didn't know that back then. But that's what I started. I started Go for CEO podcast. I started interviewing people like yourself. You were the 100th episode. I loved it. That was one of the greatest opportunities I had. having you on. And I started with my circle of influence, right? Throughout the 20s and 30s, I built some good friendships, and through business and personal, I thought to myself, well, in the pandemic, what's happening? So I assessed what's going on. The pandemic was holding people back. Government was, in my opinion, overreaching a little bit. And what was happening is that these business owners, small to medium-sized business owners, weren't having a voice because they were just being told what to do and demanded to do certain things. Well, in my opinion, I wanted to give them a voice, and I didn't see a podcast out there that was interviewing just small to medium-sized business owners, everyday Joe and everyday, Joanne, that owned a business that were doing, $500,000, $3 million, $20 million, $40 million, that they're in their neighborhood and they're doing great business, but they don't have like a social media presence. They've never done a podcast, stuff like that. So I just ventured off and said, hey, why don't I interview these people? I think it'll be really interesting to hear their stories, to understand what they think like, what are the moves that they made from their operations to their sales staff, how did they grow their leadership components, how did they start paying people, how did they get financing? So that was the impetus of that. And the number 4 came many years later, 4 or 5 years later, as I'm writing this book. It came out to be the 4A formula, because not only did I interview guys like you and guys and gals that were entrepreneurs, but I thought to myself, like, what is it that we all do? Like, what did I do being an only child, owning a business and becoming an entrepreneur as well? What do they do? And I thought to myself, wow, almost everybody I talked to assessed where they're at. Like, they always are assessing, like, where am I at? What am I doing? What's going on right now? Where are we at? Where are we established? Where's the cash flow? All this type of stuff. Then typically in my life, I aligned myself. I was like, oh, I know Jason Jimenez. He owns Redstone Capital. He has Bold Saviors podcast. Like, he knows some people, That's aligning. I can align myself with them. And then either through 6 degrees of separation, spiderweb effect, I would be able to get to someone that would maybe help me, right? Accountability is the next step. That's number 3. Looking in the mirror, becoming accountable. And the last one is taking action, because all the first 3 are great. It's super needed, but if you don't take action. So that's kind of where the 4 came from, which I never even knew. And now the 4 will be the mainstay for anything I do. It's going to be 4 steps to everything that I'll come out with in the future to have that go for CEO mindset.
That's beautiful, because at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be complicated, does it? It just needs to be process driven. And if you just repeat something that works, keep doing it, right? So with that, you've been in finance for some time now. You made a pivot going into that. You help entrepreneurs, businesses from a variety of different industries in being able to get the proper funding, financing, so that they can continue to scale, grow, if not even mitigate some risk based on some hedges that they've possibly done, good or bad and indifferent. But at the end of the day, you're positioning and educating them. Talk to me a little about that before we get into your book, because I'm dying to ask you about the book and go into some deep dives into that. But talk to me about what you do for clients when it comes to the finance world. And then I have a couple questions behind that.
I missed that a little bit. What about the finance world? What
do you do in the finance world currently right now with the clients that you're serving? What exactly are you offering right now, and how do you help them?
Oh, awesome. Yeah, great question. So, yeah, as a commercial banker, typically what our main focus is debt, right? And how do you structure debt so that you can grow your business? And that could be acquiring a business. It could be refinancing something that you already hold as a piece of property or equipment, something like that, or purchasing something that would help you grow, right? Recently, it's called an auto body parts place. I helped them secure a new location, and they were leasing 2 places, and for less than what they were leasing for, they got a bigger place square footage wise for their distribution business. And now that impacted their business from the bottom line. So their net profits were better. Their efficiency was better because it was a central location. So that's another way that I helped them. But yeah, I mean, everything banking, from depository relationships, understanding how to work that, to taking the individual business owner through their personal wealth journey in wealth management. Because when you own a business, a lot of your assets and a lot of your net worth is in your business. But when you go become ready, hopefully 3 to 5 years beforehand, you're having some strategies of how to exit. I typically help the people buying that business, but now with this move that I made recently to a smaller bank, we can really help that strategy to exit as well. So it's a combination of things, but the number one thing is debt structuring, debt strategy, and growth strategy is my main component.
Okay. So here on that note, where do you find the biggest problem or the biggest issue that companies are having or that you come across where they think they're bankable or lendable, but they come to you and they're like, sorry, you're missing this, you forgot this, you don't do this. Give us some insight for these individuals that are either existing businesses that don't even understand how to leverage or work the financial debt structures that are available in today's world.
Yeah, so there's a formula or a acronym, EBITDA, and it's something that most business owners, and me included, when I had my own business, I was just making money, right? Like once we hit the 7-figure mark and we were doing about 3.5 million, I was like, man, I should be able to sell this for 10 times this, right? And make millions of dollars. And what I realized is my EBITDA was a lot smaller than I thought. And my accountant would always tell me, well, hey, you could write this off and you could write this off and you can do this and that. And one of the struggles for a small business, right, 0 to 10 million, is typically that game, right? And especially in the Latino community, if there's some Latinos out there, we love you because we're Colombian, right, background. You play that game with your CPA, which I love CPAs. They're one of my favorite people to work with because they bring me opportunities and I vice versa to them. But if you're playing the tax strategy game, sometimes that doesn't coincide with a bankable strategy game, right? Because you have to show a net income, which is EBITDA, earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization. And that is the quandary. And as you grow your business to 100,000 in sales, to 500,000, to 3 million, to 20 million, you've got to be able to have this balance of understanding how to play the tax strategy game and also how to be bankable so that when you need debt to grow, which most banks or most businesses do, you could be having enough debt service liquidity in your cash flow. So that's the money that you end up declaring to the government that you have as a net income, EBITDA. Then that is used to say, okay, well, yeah, you could buy a $3 million building. You could buy a $10 million company. You could buy this, that, or the other. And how do we help you debt service that? And a good number to always think about, in my opinion, is 1.2 to 1. So for every $1.20 of net income, then you could service $1 of debt. That's kind of the average in the banking industry. Some go lower to 1.15, but a simple number is 1.2 to think about. And that's kind of where certain clients come to me or opportunities come to me. I'm in the lower middle market, so I'm like $5 to $100 million companies in gross revenue. Those companies, they've kind of broke the threshold of $7 million, or I'm sorry, $1 million of revenue, but they're still playing that 1 to 5 million, 1 to 10 million dollar game in the tax. So I've got to be able to coach them and see, okay, hey, not only maybe is your business not doing well, but if it is doing well, are you over leveraging tax strategies so that you can be bankable? So those are some of the components that really help. And I see all day, every day. This morning alone, I had a $20 million deal come to my understanding, and I saw it, and I just saw some of that strategy hurting them, and they're trying to buy a building, and it's a $20 million opportunity, but we're going to have to readjust some things and hopefully give them like a 3 to 6 month window for the end of the year so that their end of year P&Ls and balance sheet can look a little bit stronger for us to be able to do business.
Yeah, super powerful. And so when you're dealing with those clients that say, because you have to be workable too. They got to be coachable and they got to be willing to take your advice but also you have to be empowered of knowing, well, where are you trying to head to? Where are you trying to get to so that I know exactly where I can respond and be of service, right? So what do you tell an individual that says, I've never thought about actually selling my business or even having the choice of selling my business? because I'm just trying to grow my business at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
So
mean, we all have phases, right? So
yeah,
the phases that we're in is in growth mode, maintenance mode, right? Or just maintaining. Maybe you got to a certain lifestyle as a business owner that you really enjoy. And I've got some of those guys too. Like they could be 20, 30, $50 million companies, but they're happy being seven and drawing a $350,000 salary and living a good life, right? So depends on the phase that you're at, and if you could, I guess, push the business owner to think ahead a little bit. Sometimes a lifestyle business can become too much of a comfort level, right? You get to a certain point where your business is a lifestyle, and then you won't ever realize the true potential of that business until you get to growth mode again, and then be able to have a mindset of exiting. So that's just, I guess, my 2 cents on it. So.
do you get involved, or do you want to get involved, or how does that work when somebody says, you know what, John, I am ready to sell? And how can you help someone that is like looking to sell in the next 24, 60 months? What's some things that you could be able to provide to them, and what would you want to tell someone that is looking at wanting to sell?
Yeah, so I mean, from a banker perspective, obviously I want to match up maybe with a M&A guy, right? A merger and acquisition person, and I know we have a mutual buddy, in Kyle in New York, as a guy like that. And I know you do a lot of seminars in M&A with landing big whales and stuff like that. But so I always want to team up with someone that has the inside scoop of an industry, what kind of multiples they can get, those types of insights.
Yeah.
But really, if someone's ready, that is a perfect time, right? Is if they know mentally that they're about 24 to 36 months away from wanting to exit, because either they want to take the pedal off the metal, and it could be a strategy of maybe a key employee inside of that company that maybe takes over a certain percentage of sweat equity, maybe 10% as an example. There's some SBA programs that if you identify someone within your company and give them 10% within 2 years, they don't even need to put a down payment. That is their down payment, the 10%, as an example. So that's a cool strategy if you're thinking 24 months from now. If you're thinking 36 months from now, let's get those next 3 years so that the EBITDA is maximized to the gilt. Because those 3 years, from a banker perspective, when I go to help someone buy a company, we take a multiple of 3.5 times those 3-year averages. So the last 3 years of your EBITDA at a multiple of 3.5 for a bank. Now, PE and other companies may buy you for a bigger multiple, but from a bank perspective, we look at it typically at around 3.5 times EBITDA. So 3 years is a perfect time, just the way that you put it.
Wonderful. So you've got a new book, and you've been working really hard for it. And knowing you have put your heart and soul into it. What triggered saying, I'm going to write a book? Because there's a lot of people out there that say, man, I would love to write a book. I'm afraid. I don't know what to say. I know what I want to talk about. I just don't know how to put it together. Like, talk to me about that. Like, where did this book idea come from, and why did you just launch it?
Yeah, so when we met on Clubhouse, I kept on saying, like, I want to write a book. I want to write a book. And I kept on hearing people that had books had the notion of, man, it leaves a legacy, and I didn't really capture that. I thought about it. I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea, right? I read a proverb that talked about, like, have a son, plant a tree, and write a book. I'm like, okay, well, I've got 3 daughters, so I'm not having a son. I could plant a tree, I'm going to do that. It's one of my goals on the bucket list. But writing a book about 2.5 years ago, I just started writing ideas down. And I keep on telling people that ask me the same question, well, oh, how'd you write it? And what's the technique and all that stuff? And look, I write like I speak. So that's not a good thing for writing a book. So
Yeah.
I just kept on writing. Like, I wrote a story about being 12 years old. I wrote a story of going to Colombia and seeing my uncle and for the first time realizing like my uncle's a business owner, like a real business owner, and the cachet that he walked into his place, and he would work with the manufacturing people at the bottom of the barrel, to he would be with CEOs of other companies, and I would watch him do this because I had the chance a few times to spend some time in Colombia. And he was the international governor of the Lions Club, as an example. Another thing that he was very prestigious and had just this aura about him. And I thought to myself, wow, this is a cool story. So all these stories I just put on paper, okay? And what came about is 2 years into this process, I just had a bunch of ideas. I was trying to put it all together. And I just made a decision. I go, look, I'm not going to self-publish. I'm going to actually get a real publisher with real editing. I'm going to pay for it, because you can self-publish 100%, and there's a lot of people that have. But in my opinion, I wanted to, like you said, do it right from the first time. And I said to myself, all right, I'm going to find someone. I found a lady here in Naperville, Illinois, called Fig Media Productions and editing and book publishing. She's got a phenomenal story herself. Beat cancer like 7 times. She's a pilot. She's an author of 27 books. Really, really great lady. And I started that process. So I paid her a good amount of money to be able to help me. And what happened is throughout the process of me writing like I speak, I started to convert that into a story and understanding. So even till like June of this year, we were in a final editing version. And it's interesting, like you said, I wanted to kind of just, tweak it a little bit more. And I took the last 60 days and went into the book and again perfected some areas, increased the words, got deeper into interviews I had with Go for CO entrepreneurs and CEOs to give some insights as bonus chapters. And now, we're finally to that point. But I would say this, one thing that changed my heart for this, and where I discovered that whole legacy thing, is about 3 weeks ago, as we're going through this final editing process, my oldest daughter, who's 13 years old, said, hey, Dad, can I read the book? You know, I've seen you've been working on this for 2 years. I've never read it. I was like, all right, go ahead. And it was so cool to see her start to read the book and read the outline and see the pictures in it, and just the reflection prompts and the things at the end of the book chapters and stuff like that. And I got swelled up. I started crying. And my wife's like, well, what's wrong with you? I said, well, for the first time ever, I'm actually, when I saw the U.S. Congress Library have me as an author, and then my daughter, be able to read it, like I thought to myself for the first time, when I'm gone, my grandkids, kids could be able to read my book and learn about what Papa John had in his mind and what he thought about. So just got choked up right now. So it's a cool feeling. So yeah, I would implore anybody. They always say everybody's got a book in them, because we all have our unique stories, and that's what Bold Saviors is all about, right? Is these stories that, at least put it in something that you could leave behind, which is, you don't have to maybe register with the U.S. Congress Library, but what if you did a self-published book on Amazon that'll sit there forever and somebody's going to enjoy it, and hopefully that's the goal, is to leave that legacy.
That's super powerful. Yeah, you reminded me of something that in these last couple of years, 2.5 years or so, I have made it a mission to start asking my mom and dad. Mm-hmm. Like, I know you since I remember you when I was born, however age I was, 2, 3, or whatever, with my furthest memory. But I can honestly tell you I didn't know them before I was born. Like, you may hear stories from relatives and stuff, but honestly don't know. I can tell you that the moment I started asking about my mom, where she grew up, and my dad, and what they've experienced, I wish I had that in a book. I wish that I knew that, not at 48, but at 22, or maybe even at 15, because I think it would have made an impact in me and the decisions I made. So I totally get what you're saying, because you're able to share something that you're passionate about, a piece of your identity, if you will, a piece of what's important to you, and pass it and will it down to generations and to other people that, quite frankly, may not even know you. And that, I think, is huge and powerful. So I really commend you for that. So I get why the book is called the name of the book. You articulated it extremely well. What is to be expected as a reader? What are we expecting to get out of it when we go through it?
Yeah, I think a simple formula, right? Of the tagline to Go for CEO, the podcast, is driven by mindset, and I wanted to do something where it's simple, but you could say to yourself, okay, I'm stuck, and I don't know what to do. And I remember those days, right? I remember having $3.25 to go to the 99-cent value Wendy's drive-through because I had like a quarter tank and $4 almost in my pocket, and I was hungry, and I'm an entrepreneur, right? And I'm supposed to be successful, and I go to Wendy's to get a chili, a baked potato, and a junior cheeseburger type of thing. So I think what you're going to get out of it is a simple process that will allow you to, in the chapter number 1, assess where you're at. Like everything I do, my faith, my family, my fitness, my finance, and my fun, I assess where I'm at, right? And it could be in a bad place, right? For a few years, I've been a little bit disconnected with my faith, but some recent things that came up with, the death of Charlie Kirk and those types of things, as well as about last year, I volunteered to coach my 5th grade girls basketball team for the first time ever. I'm not a basketball player, and I coached it with another gentleman named Chris, and he invited me after the season to a Bible study. So now I'm in a Bible study as of this year with 12 other dudes, and I'm also reconnecting, right? So I assessed, when he asked me, I said, well, I just told myself, I'm like, how is my faith? And I've always had faith. I've always believed in God. I've always been Christian or Catholic, right, Christian. And but I said to myself, I need this right now. So then I aligned myself with Chris and the 12 guys, right, the 12 tribe. And now I stayed accountable. Over the last 6 months or so, we've been reading a chapter where we read it 3 times in a 2-week period, and then we get together on Mondays every other 2 weeks, and we just talk about it for an hour. And it's been really cool. So that's an example of what I think people will get from this, is they'll be able to grab a formula and say to themselves, okay, hey, as long as I assess where I'm at right now, I can align myself with the right people. And if I don't have those people, spider web it, right, and find who can get you to where you need to go in your faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun. Then take accountability, because that has to happen. And then lastly, take action, because all the seminars and all the books and all the webinars and all the podcasts that you listen to, if you don't take action, it's for none. So you have to take action at the end. So that's the formula.
Super insightful. Thank you for that. When does it come out? When you look, where can we get it if we want to download it or if we want to purchase it? When does that become available?
Yeah. So we're launching October 1st. We're working on some media takes out there. I forget what you call it, like drops or media drops and stuff. And we're doing some videos to be able to promote it, and with our media guide and publisher and our website guy. So October 1st is the launch date goal. And there'll be some reflection prompts at the end of every chapter. I got this out of $100 million leads and $100 million orders from Alex Hermosi. He has a book called $100 Million Money Models, $100 Million Leads, and $100 Million Offers. And he, at every chapter, has a QR code that then, when you scan it with your phone, it takes you to a video of him talking to you about what just happened in the chapter. And that was a cool thing. So I was like, oh, I'd love to do that. So mine isn't as studio awesome as his, because he's definitely put in the time and money. But I took a little bit about that, and that's why I didn't launch in July. So we're launching October 1st. It'll be on Amazon. It'll be on go4ceo.com. So there'll be a book link there. And then obviously it'll be sprayed around the social media profiles that I have with Go for CEO and John Andrade as well.
Oh, phenomenal. What haven't I asked you that you want to talk about?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think going into faith is a big deal. Going into your family, your finances, your fun, your fitness. I would say my second book I'm already thinking about is 40 plus year old males. It's going to be very targeted. The reason I bring that up is I think, in my opinion, I'm a Gen X guy, turning 50 this year, so it's kind of a cool accomplishment to get this book out before I'm 50. I know I don't look it. It's good. So,
You look great.
but I,
You're older than
I,
me.
what's that?
You're older than me.
Yeah, yeah. See, so,
No
so
idea.
I guess the only thing I'm thinking about this book, right? And it's something about turning 40 as a male and being a man, right? When I was 19, I faced the Lord again. I was born and raised Catholic as a good Hispanic young man, but I never really connected right with God. I did the rituals, going to church, all that type of stuff. At 19, I went to this thing called Promise Keepers, and I remember being in a stadium of 60,000 people, all men, which was weird in and of itself. And Tony Evans, which was the preacher or the deacon, I think, for the Dallas Cowboys at that time, a big black gentleman, but with this powerful voice. And he talked about faith and about being a man, not just, or a father and a man instead of just being a male. So I think with all that's happened recently in 2025 and the assassination of Charlie Kirk and all these things, I think faith and then having an understanding that your family as a man and father is important. Your fitness, like, I'm sorry, but a dad bod is not cool. And it's not, and I don't do that to demean anybody if they have a dad bod, but the reality is I think we're waking up that if we can have our fitness right, we could live longer, we could live better, we can live more active. So I guess my goal to what you asked is, to me, my second book I'm already thinking of is about this 40-year-old man transition and not giving up. You haven't even lived yet, in my opinion. And I think your 50s and your 60s and your 70s, we have two presidents that are just almost 80 years old recently. You have an ability to impact the youth, and you have an ability to impact your current generation and a prior generation by staying active after your 40s and thinking about ideas and thinking about things that you could do. So, it's just something that's on my heart, and we'll see how it comes out to a 4A formula.
No, I think that's so powerful. Man, the John that I met and the John that's speaking today is just awesome. Like, I really commend you. And proud of you, man. Like, genuinely. Like, you've dove in and you're head first, and you've accomplished so much, and you've provided and protected and shielded the people that are in your life, and especially your family. And I just want to say thank you for truly being here today and really catching up. And there's something you said just a little bit ago that inspires me to want to ask you one thing. And it comes from the perspective of legacy, just based upon being present with who's in front of me. And you are. And I'd like to ask you, as you're looking into the camera, because this is a stamp in time, what would you be telling your kids, your daughters, when they see this?
Wow. As I get choked up. It's interesting, right? They've seen me at bad times too. So I'll just be bold, right?
Yeah.
Because we have a savior.
We're human.
They've seen me fall on my face. The 13-year-old has seen the brunt of dad's sometimes emotions with mom, or just things that I've done that weren't good, or decisions that I've made because we haven't been able to buy the bigger house, or provide certain things. We provide a lot of things, right? Much more than I had when I was a kid. But I would tell them that, look, dad and anybody that is in their life, as long as they're willing to brush off something that just happened, take accountability for what just happened, be remorseful, right, and have some sort of empathy for the person that they hurt. And as long as that person is showing those qualities, then keep them around you. Be willing to work with that person to see them grow to the next level. And I tell them every day, look, to my 13-year-old, to my 11-year-old, to my 6-year-old now, and to my wife, right? Thank you for the blessings of me being a father and a husband, but thank you for the patience, because I'm growing every day and getting better. And as I mess up in different ways, I just ask for forgiveness, and I ask for our Almighty Father to give me strength and wisdom, and then I can lead better that way. Because it's not on me, but again, that would be my message to them is, have patience with people, just like you told me at the beginning. What would I say to my 20-year-old? Have patience for myself, have patience for others, but have expectations too, right? I don't want to lower expectations or standards, because we all should have a definitely line of standards that we live by, and when we fall from those standards, give each other grace to stand up again and become part of that standard again.
Super powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, we have John Andrade. My friend, thank you so much for being with me, being part of the Bold Saviors, making the impossible possible in business. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had a chance, look them up on LinkedIn, look them up on Go for CFO or CEO, and give them an opportunity to where you could get touched by him, because he is a man of faith and a man of individual that is wanting to be of service to other human beings and professionals out in the world. And sir, thank you so much for being here today. It really means a lot.
Awesome, brother. Well, hey, man, everybody subscribe to the Bold Saviors, all right? I don't do it enough on my podcast. I know you haven't done it yet, but I'll be the component to subscribe to the Bold Saviors. Jason gives so much and so many tools that he has, like the Spiderweb Effect, the Landing Big Whales Association, and all the things that he's doing. You're talking about aligning yourself with the right people. So thank you, Jason, for the opportunity.
Thanks, sir.